Yeah, our next repair is a banjo clock. It's a New Haven, and it's got a nice waist reverse painting on it. The bottom panel is a nice painting too, but I can see that it's beginning to peel away from the glass. We'll have to see what we can do to preserve that. So I'm going to start by getting the movement out of it. Take the hands off. Clean up the bezel. Take that pin out. You go with the washer. That hand. Our hand. And then we've got 3 screws to take the dial off. Off, and it's indeed a New Haven movement. Here's the movement held in with 4 screws. Got a very long pendulum suspension spring. So we'll go ahead and we'll take that out. Uh-oh, we got a spring jammed up against the case. Usually when you see that, there's either a broken click or a broken spring. We'll find out in just a minute. The thing to check that is to see if it winds. Let's see, we've got to find a key that fits. There we go. Yeah, it winds to the right. No, that. Yeah, there's something wrong with the click, because there's no click at all. Have to investigate this and see what's going on. Maybe just a broken click. We'll take out the suspension rod, pendulum rod, so we don't tear up the spring on that. And then let's see what we got. Take off this panel. Okay. Set the panel aside. 4 screws. These are not original. One of them is not original. It's smaller than the others. So we'll see what we need to do with that. Yeah, let's see what we got here now. Came out okay, so I don't know what's going on with that spring. I just have to be very careful. Okay. Ooh. Been some pretty ugly soldering done on this. We can clean that up. Really ugly soldering. I don't know what this originally looked like, but there's something missing here that for the clasp on this. I'll have to look up and see what that might have been. It's definitely looks like a replacement paper dial that's been put on that. This was silvered at one time. Let's see if we might be able to touch that up, clean it up a little bit. Definitely see if we can clean this bezel. What I want to do is look and see what's going on with that spring, because I don't need it going off and exploding in my face. And let me bring this over. There's the click right here, and it's not down in there, so let's see if it goes in. Ooh, it's stiff as can be. Yeah, let's see what happens if I wind a click. Oh yeah, that's not going back in. So we'll have to do something about that. I look up inside here, I can see here's where the click spring is supposed to be attached, and the click spring is way over here, so too hard to show this on camera. I'll put the click spring back in place and see if it operates properly then. Putting the click spring back in place doesn't make that click operate yet, so. And I can see by the verdigris on there that there's been a lot of corrosion going on that click spring, or that click. So I'm going to do what I generally would say don't ever do. And I'm going to take some WD-40 and squirt on that connection to see if I can get that click working, because I need that operating right to safely work with that spring. There we go. Just get a little bit of that WD-40 in there and see if that'll dissolve away that gunk that's keeping that click from working. Let me see if I can. Oh, that's really stiff. Oh, okay, oh, there we go. WD-40 did get in there. Now that click is moving much more freely now. Okay, now that'll work. And I can safely start to mess with that spring. Okay, at one time the spring must have really let loose badly. This spring is unwound way into here where it should never go. And looks like the strike at least works. Okay, so we're going to try winding that up, and I hope to heck it doesn't come back to bite me. Okay, here goes. See if this will wind. That sucker really must have let loose at some point. Ooh, that scared me. It just went back into place. Okay. I say I respect these springs. They let go. They're going to be fun. Thing's going to try to run. Okay, what we need to do now is get a clamp on that spring. It must be very, very, very gummy and dirty because the coils aren't slipping easily. And again, I'm going to try to free up some of that gummed up oil by squirting some WD-40 between the coils. Okay. It is winding. The click is working. I need to get a couple of rings like this. that spring down, but I'm going to go get we got this ring in there. I'll take one of my small screwdrivers. And what we're going to do is put this up. Let this slide. The click go back in. Okay. Now we should be able to let it down the rest of the way. Just let that slip. Okay. Spring goes against the ring, and that safely captures that spring now. Click is now right there, so that I can release that and let the spring down. Maybe I'll set this right here. We'll do that here. Okay, we'll put the let down key on. Turn this way, and we will release that. Ooh, maybe we'll release that key. Click. Ooh, man, that is really tight. Oh, that's jammed up too. Oh, yeah, I gotta spray that and loosen it for a while. Try this again. Put the key on. Oh, man, that is really tight. Okay. Okay. Now we'll look and see. Okay, we got the ring on there. Oof. Man, that spring is really gummed up. So, okay. Okay, that's the end. There she is, all down now. Now everything's safe. Now I can start to look at some things and take it apart. We get the springs all let down safely. Now we can just take it apart. And should be relatively easy. Ooh, that's really gooey. Get a couple more containers. All right. Ooh, yeah, a lot of green under there. That is really some gummy oil. I don't know what kind of oil somebody used on this, but it wasn't the right stuff. And these nuts are basically only hand tight. So. Okay. Except that one. I can't even get the nut driver on it. Okay. And we'll take a look at that. And surprisingly, there's virtually no wear on the pallets at all. So that's a good thing, just dirt. Okay, well, we ought to have this coming apart here now. Okay, a little bit of residual stuff. Let's get the spring for the hammer out of there. That can stay on. We'll take it off after we get it off. Okay, ooh, boy, that's really stuck. Get the escape wheel out of there. Well, maybe we'll get it out after we get it out of here. Okay. I gotta take that spring out. Okay. There we go. Alright. Okay, there's the layout of our gears. And we've got the run side here, 1, 2, 3, and then the mainspring. So we'll just take those out, put them here. That's here. And we got the escape wheel still in here somewhere. There we go. Okay. And then we have there's the hammer. We'll take the spring out of there. This is one of those new Havens where it goes on the post up here instead of down here. Now let's take the center out. And the intermediate wheel. Oh, that's an odd one. Intermediate wheel's right there. Huh. Okay, the tension spring in this one, the clutch is a spring on the center shaft. Intermediate wheel comes right off there. Okay, we'll take strike side out. Okay, let's. Well, that is so gummy. The oil on there is so nasty. It's almost like those things are welded on. Jeez. Louise. Gonna have fun getting these off. An interesting fit. Okay, there we go. Got that one off. Now this one, that's probably pretty well jammed up against there. Okay, there we go. There we go. And you see that green. Turns green because it's reacting, corroding the copper part of the brass, which is copper and zinc. Alright, we'll put these away again. Get those out of the way. Anyway, get that out. Come on, baby. Okay, take that piece out of the hole and then slide this whole thing off. And then the count wheel comes right off. And The key to getting this back on the right way, if you forget, if you look on the other side, there's a wear pattern from where it wears against here. So you know that's got to go back on that way, and that wear pattern will be there even after we clean everything. Okay. Interesting. It says New Haven right here. Where the hell am I there? Yeah. It says New Haven here. This is 335, and then there's a big 5 stamped over the top of it. And the other plate, interestingly, there's a thing here that says, looks like KEH 76. Alright, now who knows what 76 means? Is that 1976? Okay, anyway. So we'll let down the springs, the spring winder, and then I'm going to put everything into the ultrasonic, clean everything, and then we'll put wheels back in and look for wear at that time. This has had some extensive work done on it. Let's see if I can find them here. That's high magnification. There's a bushing. Let's see, there's one, there's 2, there's 3, 4, and another one over here if I can get to it. 5. So this side has had 5 bushings put into it. And then the main wheel bushings, I don't know, somebody did a real sloppy, they put like a sleeve in. Whatever they did, they cracked the original one. I don't know why, what the heck is, it's like a pentagon done in there. This one the same way. Don't like what I see there, it's cracked. I'm going to be replacing those by making new ones on the lathe. There's that one, and then there's, let's see, there's this one. There's a bushing. There's a bushing. There's a bushing. But from the back, I just don't like the looks of that. Don't like the looks of that at all. Here's the one that really gets me. Just, I don't know what in the heck they did to it. I don't like the looks of that at all. We're going to be replacing those. You don't want to be right in front of that spring. Wind it up. Come on, coils. Okay. I'll flip the switch here. And we will now let this all the way down. And now we'll be able to take it off the wheel and clean it. And we're done with both of the springs. Nasty. Okay, there's the initial cleaning. They've all been completely degreased. Now we need to go through a piece by piece cleaning, and they're ready. Springs are all nice and clean. Things are ready to be put at least back together so that I can check for wear. Okay, we're going to be replacing the main bearing there. I just don't like that. There's cracks in it and don't like it. This is strike side. Let's look at these bushings. See if I can zoom in a little bit on them. And we'll see. That one looks good. Don't think I like that one. Yeah, that one's going to be replaced. Looks kind of strange, almost like it's cracked. Yeah, we'll replace that one. And I don't like that one either. Yeah, those two are going to have to be replaced. Otherwise, everything else is okay there. Let's go to the back. Yeah, a little iffy. Check it when we have the plates apart, but I might replace that one. That one's okay. That one's okay. And that one's okay. So we got maybe three. Okay, examining gears. This is the one that is on the strike side. And the gear that runs the count wheel, it's got a crack in it. Check this out pretty carefully. See if there's any binding at all. That crack runs all the way through. We don't want that coming loose. Not so sure that this is on there right. Seems to me that should be on there a little further, where that's going to drag on the plate. Not quite sure. Oh, you know what I think? I think this was repivoted, but it wasn't repivoted by drilling. This was repivoted with one of those caps. Not sure, but that's sure what it looks like. And then when they drove that back on, they drove it on too hard, and it cracked the gear. Placement pivot. See this pivot end here? That pivot is pretty much squared off at the end with just a very slight chamfer around the edge. This pivot is very, very much rounded. I'll tell you the way to do it, take this back off, measure the descent, just take a look at this. I think we're just going to have to reconsider. Yeah, I think that's one of those old goofy caps, because this has been driven on, and I can see right now it's not parallel with the gear, so it wasn't put on. It's closer on this side than on that side. Yeah, I don't like that crack. We're gonna maybe have to take that back off. I don't know if I have a replacement. I might have a replacement gear that I can do, but that's one of those caps, I'm sure. You can see. I don't like that one bit. I don't like the fact that this is completely level. There's no shoulder sticking out for that pivot. This should be a little further on so that this whole surface doesn't rub on the plate. And as looking at it, it might have been doing just that. I'm going to have to take a closer look at it, but no, we got to do something about that crack. Okay, I put the count wheel back in, put the main wheel in, and I put that second wheel in that has that gear in it with the crack, just to see what it does. And when I'm running this, yeah, see, yeah, I can feel it sticking. As I move that around, there it's jammed right there, real tight spot right there. Yep, there it's literally jammed right now. And if I look, I gotta put my visor down here. Let's take a look and see what's there. Yep, there's the crack. See the crack in the gear. And right there. And when I run that this way, there it jams. There it's jammed. Yeah, I definitely got to do something. And that pivot, shame of that is, whoever worked on this last did a pretty good job putting bushings in, but this arbor needed this wheel needed a new pivot put on. It's got a new bushing in it, but it needed a new pivot. Instead of putting in a lathe, drilling out, and putting a piece of hardened steel pivot wire in, they used one of those pivot caps. It comes in different sizes. And the sad part is you have to ruin the arbor from ever going the other way. You got to cut the end of the arbor off, and that cap then fits over the cut off arbor because there's a thickness to that cap. And so you got to cut the arbor off some. And that means that if I take that pivot cap off, that arbor's no good. So I got to think, do I want to? That crack has to be repaired. I think maybe what I'll do is I'll pull that gear off, see if I can silver solder it back together under tension. Maybe there's enough material on that pivot cap that I can turn that down slightly, or I can broach out the opening in the gear to make it go on a little further. And then what I can do is I can push it on a little further. If but make it less tight. Make it a snug fit, but less tight, and then use some Loctite to put it in place. Otherwise, the only thing I can think to do, the other thing would be I would have to take off not only the gear, but I'd have to take the wheel off. I'd have to take the lantern pinion off. Just turn a whole new arbor, and then put those back on those. That's one heck of a lot of work. I think, and if I have to do that, that's what I end up doing. But right now, I think what I'll do is I'll pull that gear off and see if I can repair that with silver solder. Pull it together, silver solder it. Turn that pivot cap down and see if I can fix it that way. It needs to go on just a little bit because I wondered if this, you see if the end shake is that much. So you not only get the problem with the crack, you get the problem with this shifting this way, and now that whole pinion gear is rubbing on the front plate, and that should be on just enough, a little bit further on, so that there's a shoulder on the pivot so that that gear doesn't rub. And it could be they did that because I don't know what it looks like until I take it apart. But let's take that approach first, see if we can fix it without having to make a whole new arbor. Okay, normally what I do is I put this in here in this crow's foot, and I would take a punch with a hole in it, drive it that way, but there's not enough shoulder there to get to it. So what I'm going to do, once it gets on there all that tight, let me set this up. Just going to take a block of wood and gently hit the drive that pivot. There we go. Popped it off. Okay, now let's take a look at things. Okay, there's that crack in that gear, and I'm wondering if I can put this in and I can maybe clamp this together. Maybe pull that back together. I wish I had the ability here to make gears, but I don't. There's the wheel it came off of. You can see that here's the whole cap. See, here's a cap here with its pivot, and you can see that this was cut down and tapered. So this was driven on. It's a drive-on fit, I think. I don't know if I could pull that off or not. I'm going to try because I know that arbor has been turned down because there's a thickness in here, probably about that thick. So at least that much of the arbor inside this has been cut off. So this would fit and still maintain end shake when it's put between the plates. So I think I'm going to put this in the lathe. I'm just going to try turning this down a little bit. Smooth it out. See, there's a taper here. And when I went to put this on, they drove it on to that taper. But they drove it on with enough force that it ended up causing that cracked it. So what I'm proposing to do, and they didn't get it on far enough to leave any of that shoulder sticking beyond the gear. So what I'm proposing to do is, if I can repair that crack, turn this down enough that I can slide that further on without putting a great deal of pressure on it, and then good, snug fit, but not an overly tight one that was done to this, and then secure it with Loctite. That way I'll leave a shoulder so that this won't rub against the plate anymore. And if I can pull that crack together, well, first thing I got to do is turn this down and see if I can get this to, well, first thing I got to do is repair that, and I'm not going to film that. That's messy, and I don't want to take the chance of trying to video this and running a torch and what have you. Let's see what we can do here. Alright, to start out, what I'm going to do, I'm going to measure the spaces, actually the gap from one side of the gap from outside to outside of this space, this space, this space, like this. I'm going to take my calipers, start here, put them down in between, and just measure like that. See what the distance is. Gap 1, and if I read that, it's 2 in the red dial, 2.66 millimeters. 2.65. So I get 2.66 for the first one, 2.65 for the next one. Let's see how much this one is off with the crack in it. I can see visually, just looking at it, I can see that gap between these two teeth is wider than this gap, wider than that gap. Just how much wider? Let's take a look. That comes out to 3. Wow. No, it's actually 2. 2.98. 2.98. Okay. That's over 0.3 of a millimeter difference in the space. So we got to pull that together. And I think what I'll do, I think to start out, I'm going to take a jeweler saw and I'm going to clean that gap out. Alright, every one of these gaps, it's tooth, outside tooth, all the way around, is 2.66. The gap here is 2.98. Okay, and even if I, as you can see, the thickness of the crack, if I use a jeweler saw to straighten that out, here's the thickness of a jeweler saw compared to that crack. It actually goes into the crack. So I can use that to clean it out. The thickness of the jeweler saw is 0.24. So even if I go down through, I'll still leave a gap of 2.74, which is bigger than 2.66. So I can go down, clean that crack out, so solder will go in there better. Okay, I used the jeweler's saw to clean out that crack, kind of straighten it up. See, it doesn't really make that big a difference. At least now I have a nice clean edge down through, so when I draw these jaws together I can measure between as I bring them together until I get them close enough. I don't know if I'll get them close enough, but we'll see. And then see about soldering that together. Let's see what we can do. Anyway, I'm going to cut some blocks of brass to put in this space here and this space over here, so that when I put it in the vise to squeeze this together, I'm not squeezing on top of the teeth, but I'm squeezing this together on pieces of brass, and the brass will be pressing on the bases of the space and not on any of the teeth. We don't want to damage the teeth. Let's see if we can get that brought back together. Okay, I've stoned a piece of brass so that will fit between the teeth. I have to stone that a little bit flat on the top. I'm going to put one here. We'll put one on the other side. Maybe we'll glue them in. Okay, I put some pieces of brass between teeth here. Put it in a small vice grip. And I have squeezed that just about as hard as I can. And that has brought that crack just about as close as I can get it. God, we want to reduce that down to about 2.85. It's still wider. I hope that'll work. If it doesn't, there's not much we can do about it. I will now take that. I'm going to cut a disc to put in the center, because I got plenty of room to do that. And then I'm going to just solder that. Solder the joint and solder a disc on top. See how that works. Okay. I soldered that. You can see the crack is now filled. It's a silver solder. And I had cut a disc, and I put a little shaft on it. Goes through the hole. Then this was just enough of an edge that I could chuck that up without putting any tension on the teeth. And by the way, those little pieces of brass that I put between the teeth to hold in the chuck, I glued in with super glue, and they held. And then what I do is, when I need to get rid of them, I just put a little bit of acetone into a glass jar, drop this in, it dissolves away the super glue, and those pieces that I had in here then came out. So then I put this in the lathe, and I re-drilled, so it's perfectly centered now. This thing really wasn't, something was wrong. The hole that was in there was not only off center, but it wasn't straight through. So when this was put on the gear, that's complete. You can see that. You see the solder, just barely see the solder, silver solder. So this is soldered completely on the surface of the gear, such that it will hold that crack from opening back up again. There's like a little chip out of there. That's about as close as I could get it. I don't know, it still looks like a little bit of space, and I may have to mess a little bit with a file. Let's hope it works. And now what I need to do is I need to broach that hole very slightly till I get this to go on. Relatively tight friction fit Doesn't have to be broached that much to get it on. Okay. Broach that out now till it fits very snugly. I'm going to put it in the back between the plates. See if it runs smoothly now. Hopefully it will. I don't want to attach this permanently until I make sure. And then what I'll do, there's a little bit of a shoulder sticking up there now that'll keep this from rubbing on the plate like it was. See if it fits okay. And then what we'll do is, it's tight that way. I don't ever want it coming loose. So I'll put a little bit of Loctite on it, and that should finish it up. It's nice and square now to the wheel, and it wasn't before. So let's see how it works. Okay. Okay. That's working beautifully now. Okay, very smooth. No snags. That's going to work beautifully. A little gap between there. No rubbing on the plate. Everything seems to be working just fine. Let's go a little closer into there. And there's our crack, now filled with silver solder. And it's running smooth. That's all I need. Good. I wish I could have replaced that pivot cap, but best to just leave it alone, otherwise we'll have to mess with this whole thing. It's going to work fine. That little addition on the back of the gear now. This piece here being soldered up against the surface of that gear will keep that crack from ever opening up again. Okay. This one on the run side just really tips over this way so far that the thing runs into the center post. An awful lot of slop in that one, so we're going to replace this. It out of there. I'm going to take it out, so we'll make a new one of these, and we'll take some measurements, find out just how big it's. Okay, we need something like that. And our OD is going to be millimeters. So 9.7. And the thickness of this, 2.35 millimeters. And then the thickness of that inside piece And the hole four point six millimeters. Oh. Alright, let's see how that's going to go in the strike side. Let's see how it fits. Ooh. Fits perfect. And now we got to put this into here. And what we do is this goes in here. No, maybe. Okay, that goes in there, like so. Then what we got to do is just have to we have to tap these edges over into that recess, and that will tighten that up. So I'll do a lot of banging and we'll get that in there. Okay. Now, kind of polish that off. That's in there good and tight. Okay. Okay, good. Oh, that's good. Okay, we got this one replaced now. Then I broached it out, and it's running very nicely. No slop now anymore. I was asked how I polish the pivots on a gear that has, without having to chuck up on a pivot, on one where the pivot is very short, like this end here. And here's how that's done. You make up a set of these. I'll show you those in this in a second. Anyway, turn that on. Now we don't have it chucked. We can, let's see, where's my polisher? Normally I don't have a camera in my hand. And now I can just go like this, and I'm polishing that pivot. Turn it very slowly. And let's take a look. This is how we're turning the gear. This is where we put the end of the pivot that we want to polish. The driver is made up of just a piece of small dowel, and then you make up as many of these as close to the size of the pivots that you use. Anyway, what I do is I drill a small hole in the end. It's about the same size as that little piece of brass there. That little piece of brass is nothing but a bushing. It's a 1.75 hole in there, and that's where your short, where you can't chuck up the end, is put that in that bushing. It does not have to be the tight or the right, definitely the exact right size. In fact, it should be just a little bit bigger. This is a 1.75, and I marked this 1.75 so I know about what it is. Then you drill a hole in the side, bend a piece of wire, and this is what gets chucked in, and that wire simply turns the gear, and the other end is just a piece of brass rod, see, like this, and you simply drill a hole in the end that's the same size as the hole in that bushing, and that goes into your tailstock. And anyway, what I do with this is you get the hole drilled and then use a file, or if you have a milling machine you can mill that off, and you mill it down until that hole is exposed at the top. This pivot goes in here, and if you leave it, don't cut it completely in half, that will allow the edge of the pivot to stick above the hole so it can be polished as it's turning, but it won't let the pivot pop out of that hole. Okay, like so. This goes in the tailstock. This goes in here. Bring them together. Turn it and polish your pivot. That's all there is to it. And what you do is you make up a set of these with different sized bushings in them. If I just drill a tiny hole, the same size as the hole in the bushing, or just slightly bigger. Then drill a hole the size of the outside diameter of the bushing. Tap that in there with a drop of super glue, and there's your wheel driver. It just simply, that wire just pushes on the crossings, turns it. This is what gets chucked up. That way you don't do any damage to that pivot, and you get to turn that. Now, the only thing I'd say is just make sure you're not turning it at high speed. Turn it at low speed. Anyway, that's how you can polish the pivots, and you don't have something to really tighten down in a chuck. And then keep these together as a set. And it only takes like 3-4 sets to cover all of the pivot sizes that you're going to need, that are, especially if you're working on pretty much the same kind of movements. They're all pretty much close together, and they're not that far apart. And these don't have to be exact same right size. If you do that, if you come across one that where you need one, it doesn't take that long to just make up a set of these. Mark them so that you know what size they are, and you're ready to go. You can just, whatever, you can put them in a little plastic tiny Ziploc bags or what have you. If you have some little cups like this, put them in, put a lid on them, like so. They're not going to get lost, and keep them in your tool chest. Here you are. Now we're going to proceed to bushing. So we've polished pivots here. And we did 2 bushings already, these 2 big ones. But I have now identified the ones that need to be done on the strike side. One here and one here. And then one here, and I'm going to tighten up that fan too. So I got 5 bushings to do on the strike side. Okay, we got 8 bushings to do. We got on the strike side number 3, 4, and 5, and then on the back side number 3 and 4, and on the run side we got the escape gear. We got number 3 on the back, and then the center on the back. So I got the measurements down for the size of the pivots. Now what I'll do is I'll choose both the reamers and the bushings that go in there, and we'll install those. We'll just do them one at a time. First one I'm going to do is I'm going to do the get these out of the way. I'm going to do the escape wheel on the front. That's this one right here. And I jumped. Okay. Okay. That's a big final sizing. I don't know why it's so hard. It's like a rock. Okay, there we go. Chamfer that hole first. Kind of a tricky one to get in there. Looks good. Approach that out. All the way from 1 to 1.6, so we've got quite a bit of broaching to do. Getting close. That's pretty close. That's pretty close. Smooth broach that, and then give it a test run. There we go. in there. A little bit of go to the other side. Okay, let's see how that works now. That's very good. Now let's put it in its actual place. Okay, let's check it with the plate. Spins nicely. Good end shake. That'll do. Alright, so there's one down. So we got that one done. Okay, here's the number 3 wheel. In the back we have to bush. You can see how much movement there is in that. That's really flopping around in there. So we got to take that out and we'll broach that or ream that out and then go back to you. Okay, that's reamed. Let's do a little chamfer. Burrs off of it. Block down here. Where's our, there we go. Like so. Want that flat. Okay. Right now. Okay, so we're bringing it up just a little bit. At now. Getting close. Let's do a little from the front. There it goes. It's in now. And now you see how much that turns compared to what it did before. Tiny. And now we'll take a tiny drop of oil on there. A little smooth broach. Smooth that out. Let's see how that works. Falls right in there. Okay, now let's see how that does with that. We gotta do the other side for that one too, so. There we go. Alright, it's in there. And shake. Spins the front, so that one's good. All right, number 3 wheel on the strike side. It runs real nice right now, but there is some slop in that. Let me bring this up just a bit. There we go. There's some slop in that one there. And the front and the back. So we're going to go ahead and do both of those. The old bushing came right out with that one. That bushing. Started. Broach that out till that fits. We take our cutting broach, and this one is 104, so be about the same. That looks almost a little tiny bit more. That should be close. It goes just a snug fit. So let's hit the front again. That should do it, I think. Let's see what we got. There we go. And we have a good fit. Okay, so now we need to smooth broach those. Okay. Let's do the other one. Tiny little burr there, so knock it off. Get it in. There we go. Just knock that off. Knock that off. Knock that off. Knock that off. Alright, now let's see how that goes now. Putting that in here in the back plate. Front plate on. Bottom plate. Okay. Feel a little end shake there. Okay, a little end shake. Spins. Looks good to me. Alright, good. Those are done. Got that one done. Let's put it between the plates and see how it works. And no more sloppiness. Okay, very good. The last one of the wheels now is this fly. And we can see that's really flopping around an awful lot. So we're going to replace that, and that is a same size. We'll do the same thing. And then we'll take the 297. And we will cut that out. Started. Get my punch wrong end. There's my flat end. Cutting broach. That. Close, but no cigar. There we go. A lot different. Do a little drop of oil. Okay, try again. Let's see how that little puppy goes. That's front plate. Okay, there we go. Yeah, that's better. Now we've got the end shake we need. And it's spinning, and there we go. And before we put these back together, clean out all these pivots. Okay, let me scoot this back a little bit. And use toothpick and go from both sides. Get both sides done. And kind of see what comes out of there. It really ends up polishing things real good. There's this one. Then I have some of these bamboo ones. And I can put those into the big ones. Clean those out. And some of these were levers go in. Alright, okay, we're going to oil the springs. With the inner coil, I'm going to use stuff called Slick 50. It's very nice. Spray the inner coils, goes through. I'll use a brush to coat the coils. And when we wind it, we'll spread the rest of them. Spread it evenly. Get that all greased up. And that works pretty well. Set that to the side. It's very obvious that in the past this was a spring replaced. This is a modern spring. That's an older spring. And so I don't know. I should spread that out. Okay, that should do it pretty well. And we'll let those sit. And then we got to reinstall them. This way, and you can also tell from the hook that's on here, you know, that has to hook in the end of the eye, so that's got to go on. You see the coils in there, that's got to go on. See the end there, this way. That's got to go that way. And that one's ready to be rewound. Just keep this in the way. That is ready. Okay. Tight. Okay. Spring ready. See all the excess oil. So that can be just wiped off. And you know it's been spread around, so we're all set now. Oh, we've got to put the count wheel back on. Remember our count wheel. I said which way goes down. You look at this, and then you look at this, you see the wear pattern on there, you know it's got to go this way. Clip. And I'm going to take these gloves off now. say leave them on so you don't tarnish the brass, but it's not that big a deal. That goes on there. And then this little tab goes up and goes in that hole. So that's back on. Remember this little guy? That's the one we had to repair the crack in the gear. And it works okay now. So we will put that in here. Because that little gear is what makes that, turns that count wheel. Struggled with that one for a long time. Now we got to oil it. And now we're going to put the put this on. Over the top, and now we take an oil cup. Okay, like so. And then we will just okay, I need different pair of glasses. Dip. Tiny drop on each pivot. And so we take dip. That one. Short on that one. This one. Alrighty. Oiled. And we shall now see. Perfect. Alright. Well, tell you what, too, let's make sure that we put a little drop. Pivot of the click, and just enough there. Oh, nuts. I'm going to take the whole thing back apart. Because it's slipping in the center of the spring. Okay, here we go again. Problem is. Okay, we have it. Took it all, tightened the thing up, and now we're winding. Man, it's winding fine. Okay. It looks like it's going to run. Set it up and see if it's going to chime and do everything right. So take the clamp out. This is a pretty big mess. Okay. Oh no, let's see what happens. Okay. See if this works. Ooh. There's the key. Key will fit this too. Get one end warning. Strikes. Half hour. Warning. Strike. It's not the right pendulum. I don't know if he has the pendulum, but it's running.